I'm swimming in a room full of sharks.
If somebody wanted solar, who else would they use?
The interesting thing about solar is our 5 biggest competitors over the last several years have all gone bankrupt. You may not want solar today, but you're going to want solar sooner or later. It might be 5 or 6 years.
Are they going for the best price?
Once you live in a house with a backup power generator, you'll never have another house without one. By giving you really good customer service, you're a renewable revenue stream for my company for a decade.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Get Above the Line podcast. This is episode number 22, and we have a super cool guest. His name is Jamie Clark. He owns Synergy Homes. He's created a really cool business, getting all the systems of your home in sync to get you better efficiency, better air quality, and to live a better life. So hang out, watch it, and hopefully you find value in it. Today, Jamie's here to share his journey, the challenges he's faced, the triumphs he's celebrated, and his insights into the future of home energy. Jamie, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you with us today.
I love your bio. I don't know where you got all your research. I wonder if my wife wrote that for you.
No, well,
that's pretty good stuff.
It was a combination. So I did some research.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I did throw it into Chat GPT after I put it all together.
Oh, there you go.
So
I'm a newbie on that. I'm still not utilizing the AI.
Every day I do.
Do you really?
Every day.
That's awesome.
The main reason is that puts my thoughts, these, all these random thoughts, I can put, rewrite, and then I'll put like 5 different points.
Yep.
And then it'll get me organized, and it's not the final text for me. It's just an outline.
Yeah.
And then I can go back and outline. So
finesse it. Yeah.
My wife can always spot it when I write something nice to her.
That's pretty good. I like that.
Yeah. So you had mentioned when you walked in today about your new farm.
Yeah. So we spent the last year building So I built the first zero energy home in Kentucky downtown over off of Prather Road. We backed up to East Cooper.
Okay.
So we had a 5,000 square foot house in Ashland Park and no electric bill, which was really cool.
Wow.
And it was kind of my calling card with my business. I did this for me. I can do this for you, right? And I've probably sold 200 people on solar and other things because they read the article the Herald Leader did on my house, me being the first zero energy home.
Yeah.
So over COVID, my wife and daughters got in. That was our forever home. We were never going to move. Loved the house. I mean, it was perfect comfort, perfect air quality. 5 minutes from my office, 5 minutes from Christ the King. Where our kids went to school at the time. It was all great. But over COVID, we were homeschooling, and my wife and daughters got into horseback riding, and they got me into horseback riding. And by the end of COVID, we owned 4 horses, and we were boarding them. And my wife got in her head, she's like, hey, if we take the board fees and put it on top of our mortgage, we can buy a farm.
That's awesome. I like the way she thinks.
Yeah.
I like the way she thinks.
So for the better part of a year, every time I come home, in my ear, we need a farm, we need a farm, we need a farm.
Yeah.
So, we decided we're going to list the house. We sold the house in 2 days, and now we're struggling to find a farm. And one that we had looked at a couple of months earlier that we weren't ready for, that deal fell through. And it fell through because the house needed a lot of work. And I went out and met with the family, offered them a fair price, and I said, no inspections, because we do all the work. I'm not going to hire a contractor. My company can rebuild the house internally. And they jumped on it, and it took about 9 months to rebuild, but we moved in right before Thanksgiving. And when I say right before Thanksgiving, I'm putting the bolts in the dining room table while she's cutting the turkey.
Yeah.
So it was last minute, but we're in and we're super happy.
Before we dive back in, don't forget to smash that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you never miss a beat. Let's get back to the video. Wow, that's awesome. The reason why I know is because I saw the post you made on Facebook hauling the horse manure around.
Yeah.
Something about it, you if someone would have told you, I forget what it said. If someone would have told you 2 years ago that you were going to be, I don't know if it said 2 years, but that you were going to be hauling manure around and spreading it, you would think they were crazy.
Man, I tell you what, my vision of my life, 20 years ago, I was very politically active, and I had a goal of being a state representative or a public office, and that path changed. I got some bad taste in my mouth when the Fletcher administration was in, and a lot of my friends, they got through the ringer with that. I was like, I don't think I want to do that, And at the time, I was about 10 years into heating and air, and I was looking for a more professional career, So I dabbled in insurance for a while and some other things. And then one day my wife was like, you're really good at this heating and air thing, and if you would just embrace your passion, couple of years from now, we'll open our own business and you can do your own thing. And it was the greatest decision ever. I mean,
That's awesome.
Our wives are always our best advice, right?
Yeah.
You know? So, so Synergy will be 10 years old this April.
That's awesome.
And we're doing super good things. Knock on wood, January, we're up 20% year over last year.
Wow.
So we're looking at a big year this year.
It's, like I said, I did a little bit of research before you came. We've known each other probably 9 years.
At least,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, it was right when your company must have just gotten started then, but I don't know how we came across each other, but it's a couple times we've interacted, and you actually have done work for me too.
Yeah,
at
for
our
sure,
office.
your own house,
So,
yeah.
So, but I was looking at, because I'm constantly marketing. That's what we started talking about when we walked in here. It's like, whoa, hold on. I didn't tell you to stop talking, but I wanted to make sure that we got it on here. But I noticed how many companies there are, but how competitive the marketing for those companies must be.
So it's funny you started talking about ChatGPT and AI. So there is a frenzy of venture capital companies, private equity, buying mom and pop heating, cooling company, heating, cooling, plumbing, electrician. Every major HVAC company in Central Kentucky is now owned by an out-of-state corporation.
Really?
If you name one, I'll probably tell you who owns them, and it's not who you think it is or who it used to be. I am now the largest family-owned business in the market. And these private equity companies approach me. I mean, I had one day a couple weeks ago, I had 6 in one day between email and calls. Yeah. I mean, it's a feeding frenzy.
That's awesome, though.
And
that's got to be great.
Yeah.
That's it's got to feel good having 6 different people ask you why your
Yeah,
company
but this is my baby, and you're not going to buy my baby, right? I mean, it's
there's got to be a price somewhere there, right?
Maybe one day, but that is, I got a daughter in 8th grade, right? If you gave me $100 million tomorrow, it's not like I get to travel the world, right? So I'm having fun doing what I'm doing, making a good living, we're happy.
Right.
But, I've talked to several of these groups, you want to feel them out and figure out what their motivation is. And over and over and over, they will say the home services industry is never going to be outsourced. It's never going to be replaced by AI. It's sustainable. And the statistic in Lexington right now is there's so many systems that are beyond their life expectancy. We could double the number of heating and cooling contractors in this town and not keep up with the demand in the next 5 years. Yeah.
Wow.
But believe it or not, there's over 200 licensed HVAC contractors in town, and there's about 5 that are all private equity owned that do about 90% of the marketing.
Wow.
And some of them are spending $50,000 to $75,000 a month on television.
I was thinking about it compared to real estate and what that some of the challenges I come across in marketing. I did notice this though. I Googled your company and for solar panels, and you were number 2 on 2 days. I said Lexington solar panels. You were number 2 behind. We'll wait for the solar conversation.
Yeah.
Because there's some good stuff in that, I think.
Well, the interesting thing about solar is our 5 biggest competitors over the last several years have all gone bankrupt.
Really?
So there's only one company in the market that's left, and they're a good company. We're friends, and I do a lot of lobbying for the solar industry in Frankfurt. Anybody who knows me knows I'm up there a lot. And my biggest competitor, when it comes time to lobby, him and I literally lock arms and walk into Frankfurt together.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah. HVAC is a very catty industry. A lot of the HVAC contractors talk smack about each other and run people down. And
yeah.
I'm very well talked about in Lexington, in that community.
Yeah.
In solar, we're very friendly competitors. When I walk into a job and they've already got a bid, it's like, hey, I understand, I like them. They've got their approach. Here's how we see it differently,
Yeah.
And our approach, say your house, you wanted to take your house to zero energy. I can do that with, say, 50 solar panels. But I can also do that with 50 solar panels, a new heat pump, and spray foaming 30 solar panels, a new heat pump, and spray foaming your attic. So you've got 20 fewer panels on the house, so it's more attractive. You're spending less money overall. You're getting a new heating and cooling system, which a lot of us need anyway.
Right.
And if you spend the money to buy the 50 solar panels and then your heat pump dies next month, you're going to spend that money too.
So that's your edge.
Yeah.
That's the edge that people can't compete with. Because they're just putting in the panels.
That's it.
They don't have the other elements of it.
So our model is we want to make you energy efficient, but also comfortable and healthy. We focus on air quality.
Yeah.
My house has hospital grade air. It is
Sweet.
is perfect.
Yeah.
So much so when we were building our house, we lived in a rental property.
Yeah.
And the first weekend we're in there, my wife and kids are like, all right, you have to invest in some IQ for the rental house.
Yeah, wow.
So I spent $2,000 on the rental house putting in ultraviolet lights and other things because my kids they're so spoiled because we've had such perfect air quality their whole lives.
Right.
They were miserable in the rental. They called it purgatory.
So when you say they were miserable, were they sick?
No, we call it the Kentucky crud, right?
Yeah.
You get your drainage, your eyes are dry,
Right.
your mouth gets dry.
Right.
You snore more if you don't have the right humidity and things like that. The house was on a crawl space, so we did have more allergy issues and things. My whole focus when we talk about air quality is purification, right? We want to make it as pure air as possible. There are companies that like to add things like ozone and other stuff. Those are horrible things to add to your air. We don't want to do that. And just like water, you don't add stuff to water to make it cleaner. You want to purify it. Your air is the same way. Yeah. And that's our whole approach. We want to tighten your house up as much as we can. And anybody knows me for longer than 15 seconds. If you tell me a house needs to breathe, I'm going to punch you in the throat. Yeah. Because that is one of the worst expressions in building science. And we've known better than that for 40 years. A house does not need to breathe. People need to breathe. Right. So you got to vent the house right. You have good range vent, a good bath fans, getting rid of the humidities, things like that. But the house, we want to make that as tight as we possibly can. And then we want to go about conditioning and controlling it once we do that. And I can control a lot of things. I mean, I've got a customer with a 9,000 square foot house in Versailles. He came to me in 2015. He said, hey, I'm going to build a big house, but I want to be able to afford to live there. So I want you to design all my systems. I did the lighting, the HVAC, everything. 9,000 square feet. He's still a customer today. 9 out of 12 months a year, he averages $150 a month on an all-electric home with one heating and cooling system. Wow. Because he came to me and he said, you get to design it, right? Yeah. And so many times in new construction, and the reason we don't do hardly any new construction anymore, the HVAC is an afterthought, right? Granite countertops are important. We want, 8-foot tall doors and things like that. HVAC, just keep it warm, keep it cold. And the problem with that is, as a guy like me that's so design-focused, is I want to make it perfect. I want to really do it right. Right. And then if you go cheap and it doesn't work, you're going to hold me accountable. So when you plan stuff like that, is there like a recapture rate? Like how long it's going to take before? I mean, you got to know what the house runs like when it's not efficient, right? But the health factor is what makes it so that the money doesn't matter. That's really the health factor is an intangible. Yeah. But I went and quoted a lady the other day a new heating and cooling system over off Jesselyn Drive. And we had spray foamed her attic 2 years ago. And she called us. Her system went out. We went out and realized it was 24 years old, time to get a new one. She let us put in top-of-the-line system, took all my recommendations. She didn't get a second estimate. She didn't get a second opinion. She said, look, we got 5 estimates on the spray foam. You want our business. We trusted you. You're passionate about what you do. Just come in and make it right. And we're there today putting in the greatest system they could offer. Yeah. So that's the great thing about our business model is, a lot of the companies, especially the ones that are owned private equity, right? They're service technicians. I mean, one of them right now is advertising an $8.88 tune-up on your HVAC at Home Depot. Well, anybody that believes that is going to get taken advantage of. Right. That's bait and switch all day long. Right. They're doing that to get in the house. They're getting in the house. And then there's something catastrophically wrong with the system. Exactly. Right. And they're high-pressure salespeople, and they want to come in. The service techs are high pressure, right? They want to come in and push. And the reason for that is they're spending so much marketing money to get in the average home. They're spending $700. Well, the average service call is about $300. So if they don't sell you something while they're there, it's a loser. It's a lose. So, but the challenge with that business model, if you have one heating and cooling system, and I come in on my first visit and sell you a heating and cooling system, you're dead to me for 10 years. You're not going to spend any money. Right. So they have no motivation for customer service or repeat business. You're dead to them. Right. With my business, we're so diversified. Our primary business is heating, cooling, solar, spray foam, backup power generators. That's our core of what we do. Okay. So all of those things are things that you could do at your house. Right. So if I come in and take really good care of you with my service department and you decide you want a generator, well, who's the first guy you're going to call? Right. You may not want solar today, but you're going to want solar sooner or later. It might be 5 or 6 years. So you are, by giving you really good customer service, you're a renewable revenue stream for my company for a decade. That's good. So you guys, the sources of your business, how much of it's repeat business? Oh, tremendous. Repeat and referral makes up about 80% of ours. We have one of the smallest marketing budgets in town for a company half my size. Wow. So we work with a coaching group that helps us with best practices. And when I first hired him, he was looking at my P&L and he goes, how are you classifying your advertising? And I said, it's that line right there. And he goes, no, there's no way. And I said, yeah. And he goes, I've looked at over 100 businesses in the last couple of years of coaching. You have the smallest advertising budget of companies half your size.
Wow.
And it's because we lean into customer service.
Yeah.
You know, with that repeat and referral business is huge for us.
Yeah, that's good, man. I was always like, in the beginning, I was always like, turn and burn. And, and you
got to feed the beast.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've tried that. Trust me.
Yeah. And now I've gotten just really focused. We have our database is over 30,000 people now. So like,
that's huge.
We have enough business in that database to I mean, there's enough there. And it's like, it's funny as you contact these people and, they remember you and you have conversations with them. So it's like, but I think that's a big piece that people miss.
Oh, and our industry has gotten so impersonal.
Yeah.
And no offense to accountants, but when accountants run home service business like an accountant and not like a human and not like I tell my people all the time, my staff, we are a customer service industry.
Right.
Whether you're an electrician, an HVAC guy, or plumber, whatever you do for me, you're doing that for the customer. But customer service is what we're doing. HVAC is how you're doing it. And that's got to be the focus.
I just think about, I'm thinking about real estate. I'm thinking about these big companies like Zillow
Amazon's getting into HVAC.
That's like what you're talking about it's almost like what you're talking about with the big corporations buying up the little companies and they're in this business. That's what Zillow's done with, customer acquisition. They buy the customers. Now they've actually become a real estate company themselves.
Right.
But the one thing that Zillow is really good at is taking care of the customers. Like the reason why now they've changed over to this model where they charge referral fees. So they're an actual real estate company and they're charging 38%. That's one of the ways that they pass these people off. And the reason why they did it is because real estate agents were paying $1,500 for a lead and weren't taking care of the customers.
Yeah.
With all the surveys they're doing and all the things they're doing. That's one thing Zillow's really good at is like that, the communication with the people. And I feel like real estate agents push themselves out of the business.
They do.
Right?
Yeah.
But they're, it's $1 billion company, they're worth a ton of money. Just see it happen in more and more of these pieces of the real estate industry getting taken away by companies that want the data.
It's all about data.
And that's the same thing. If it's an industry that they, somebody told me one time, and it was like, that the real thing is like the company getting the data on all the appliances, like the home warranty companies and the.
We just built a new house, right? All of our appliances are Wi-Fi. My dishwasher is Wi-Fi. My microwave. Why do I need Wi-Fi on my microwave? Right?
So they know how old it is and when you're going to be ready to buy a new one.
Yep,
right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's always been really interesting to me. Like you said, the data on how many HVAC systems need to be replaced right now.
Yeah.
This
cold snap, I mean, our phones went nuts because a lot of people, especially over COVID, people didn't want you in their house. So they were kind of kicking the can down the road. Let's Band-Aid it for a couple of years. And, then interest rates went up. People don't want to pull money. So a lot of people are emotional about how they buy. And your heating and cooling is a big purchase. It's a 15-year investment.
Right.
So a lot of people are sitting on 20, 25-year-old equipment now that should have been replaced 5, 7, 8 years ago. And when you have a really long, really cold, gets under pressure. Summer's worse than winter because furnaces are going to last longer than air conditioners, just like your dryer lasts longer than your washer. The washer has a lot more parts to it.
Yeah.
Your air conditioner has a lot more parts. So air conditioners are 12, 13, 15 if you have a really nice one. Furnaces, I've got a furnace in Frankfurt that's 55 years old that we there's no reason to condemn it. You know, I mean, it's not efficient. It's not great. But it's working, like a 55 Chevy.
We have two cabins that are like identical right next door to each other down at Lake Cumberland. One of them, the heat was having trouble keeping up. And we've owned this cabin for probably 3 years now, and every time it gets cold, it has trouble keeping up.
Yeah.
So I went down there this time because, it's cold. It was cold. I mean, I went solo, and it was like a camping trip almost because only one room in the house is warm. But I figured out that the white thing wasn't plugged in all the way.
Oh yeah, the wiring on the thermostat.
So the regular heat was working, but the emergency heat wasn't working.
Coming on.
The auxiliary heat.
Oh, and let's put that comment out there for your listeners right now. I get this question every time it gets cold. Should we switch our heat pump to straight emergency heat? And I'm like, well, if you want KU to write you a thank you card because of all the money you're going to spend with them, that's a great idea. Other than that, that's very foolish. And it's funny, I see other HVAC companies telling people on Facebook to do that, and I'm like, that's just really bad advice. The systems are smart enough to go back and forth as needed. If they're proper systems, they're working right. If they're broken, that's a different story. But if it's under normal operation, never force it. That's foolish.
Yeah. I would. Stuff like that. I say to myself, but it was my bad installation of the thermostat.
You installed it yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I installed it. So the 3 years that we've been there, it hasn't worked right.
I tell you what, the Nest thermostat is a great example of that. Nest came out hot and heavy. They're owned by Google. It's all about data, right? This really attractive black thermostat that everybody had to have all these gadgets. I've made more money taking out Nest thermostats and putting new ones in than I ever would have made selling Nest thermostats.
Right.
It's a very attractive, very poor functioning thermostat,
Well, and they're designed to be efficient, which that works against you sometimes when you want to be comfortable.
Exactly, exactly.
That's what I've learned is to turn the learning off. But having it, since we're not there, that's the functionality that we want out of it is being able to control it. That's it.
Yeah. Well, and every thermostat today is Wi-Fi. You almost can't find one that's not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So solar, if I, in the sales groups that I'm in, that's the talk, everybody wants to sell solar, right?
Yeah.
I had a cousin in Detroit. There was a situation where they told him, and I think part of that, I don't know what kind of regulation they have now, and this is 5 years ago, but they told him that it was going to pay for itself.
Right.
And he got it, and then the company went out of business or something, just as quick, as soon as he spent whatever he spent on it.
Oh, yeah.
And put him in a really bad position. He had shared the story on Facebook of the company, and they've had this channel, the news investigation. So I think solar gets some bad press from stuff like that.
Yeah, it absolutely can. The challenge the solar industry had in the last couple of years was there were companies that got really big and really aggressive at selling solar. A lot of them were door to door. They were hiring door knockers and never buy anything door to door. Nothing good comes from door to door salespeople. But when interest rates were super cheap, they would say, well, Bob, your electric bill is $200 a month. If I can put you in a 25-year loan on these solar panels at $150 a month, you're going to save $50 a month immediately. And then every time the electric rate goes up, you save more and more. And that logic is there. I mean, absolutely, it's there. The problem is that's a 25-year return on investment. I mean, you start seeing positive cash flow, but you're taking a 25-year loan out.
Right.
When interest rates were at 2%, you could make that math work. Today, unsecured loans are about 8%. The math doesn't work. I mean, I can sell you the solar panels to do it, but it's not going to be cheaper than your electric bill anymore. So the companies that really grew overnight with this business model imploded. And there's several of them that are actually under criminal investigation with the Attorney General's office right now.
Right.
So, and
because they made it was like too good to be true type of thing. Like, here, sign this and you're going to get, the
fallout from that for us has actually been good. It's been fruitful. The lenders that were partnering with those companies that were actually respectable lenders, the Attorney General's gone to them and said, hey, if those systems weren't put in 100% to code, if they haven't passed inspection, if they're not functioning, you can't collect on the loan until they are. So they're coming to me because we're one of the oldest and most reputable companies in the market, and they're paying me to go behind these defunct companies and fix the systems.
Yeah.
So,
because that was the deal. The parts weren't right, or something wasn't right with the system that got installed.
Yep.
And it wasn't functioning at all.
That's it.
And I haven't asked them recently what happened with it, but
we've had a couple of employees. That's been their focus for like the last 90 days is running around fixing solar that other companies fix. I mean, it's keeping guys busy on my staff.
My old office location, there's a solar company going in there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you know, like I Google stuff all the time, but I Google my old address because I was trying to sell that building. I didn't own the building; I was leasing it because I had somebody that wanted to buy it. So I always check in on the lease and check in on the, what's going on with it. But there's an announcement. It's some company out of California, but I still haven't seen a sign out there. And this has been almost a year now. About 6-8 months.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen anything. There's no movement. I don't see. They painted the building, but they didn't put a sign up, and there's nothing in it.
When I would go in a competitive situation with companies like that, I would tell the owner or the homeowner that I'm dealing with, I'm like, My office is on Winchester Road on corner of Winchester and Delaware.
Right.
It's covered in solar panels. You can't miss it. We got a free EV charging station in the parking lot. We're members of the community. My staff live and work here. You can come in, and if something's not right, you can speak to me, right? If you're doing business with a company that's based in Michigan from a door-to-door salesperson, anything goes wrong, and there's zero accountability.
Right.
And a lot of them are subcontracting out either the electrical or the labor or the other things. I'm a master electrician. I'm a master HVAC contractor. All my employees do all of our work. We don't sub anything out.
Yeah.
So if there's anything wrong, we're the only person you hold accountable, and we're right here.
Right. So when I was Googling you earlier, I was really impressed with the fact that, that you were like number 2 under the city, and then the city had some program.
Yeah. There's and it's something I'm not fond of. There's a program called Solarize Lexington.
Yep.
And basically the city got together and put $1 million grant out there, and they said that they would subsidize folks going solar.
Right.
And they went to all the solar contractors in the market, and they gave us a reverse bid, reverse auction, and said, how cheap will you do solar? And I'm like, I'm not going to participate in that because I don't do cheap work.
Right.
I mean, we do value work, we do quality work.
Right.
But in order to win those contracts, you're selling, Chinese solar panels and third-party parts that aren't going to last. I want to sell a really nice system that's going to last 25, 30 years. And to be competitive in those low bid situations. So we don't do government projects. I did the Louisville Zoo, I did the Catholic Action Center.
Right.
We do some commercial work, but I want somebody who wants quality, not cheap.
That was just interesting to me. I went down that rabbit hole and I started looking. I noticed you weren't on the list of providers on their list.
We are.
But your Google, your organic Google space was right next to it. So I thought that was really cool.
We are page 1 organic Google on about 20 separate search terms that are valuable to my business.
Do you have someone that does that for you?
I've got a third-party company, but I monitor that, and I have lived that for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
That's something that's very important to us. Just like, we've got more 5-star Google reviews than almost anybody.
You have 400 and
So when we bought Sorg in Frankfurt, they're an 83-year-old company. They had 9 Google reviews and a 4-star rating.
Yeah.
And that was basically April of last year. They now have 120 reviews and a 5-star rating.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So our guys, they go in homes and they perform 5-star service.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I had a really cool moment in my staff this week. We interviewed and ended up hiring a new field employee.
You found the person?
No, in another position.
Oh, okay.
This is a field position, but it's a journeyman installer, which is a very valuable member of our team. And he showed up to the interview about 15 minutes early. I was on a conference call, so he had to wait in the front office for about 15 minutes. And he comes in and sits down, and a lot of times when you're interviewing a new employee, it's almost like a blind date. So he had to wait in my front office for about 15 minutes before I brought him back in. And I brought him back into my office, and journeyman installers, they're worth their weight in gold. You have a licensed guy, and good quality guys that are doing quality work. They're hard to find.
Right.
So it's a bit of a blind date when you're interviewing these people because you don't want bad ones because we've got a really strong culture at my company, and I don't invite poison into that.
Yeah.
So he comes in and sits down, and I said, well, what do you know about Synergy? And he goes, I know I want to work here. And I said, really? And he goes, well, I didn't know I wanted to work here 15 minutes ago. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. He said, I'm sitting up in the front office for 15 minutes. I had 3 separate people offer me a bottle of water. And the 2 guys in that office that are on the phones with different people in the field, I counted 5 times that somebody in that office said, hey, man, I appreciate you. And he said, you guys are the frickin' Chick-fil-A of HVAC, and I want to work here.
That's awesome.
And I hired him on the spot.
Yeah, he's a good salesman too, right?
Yeah.
But that's really cool. That's really cool. I've been really focused on Google reviews. We have 909.
That's awesome. That's you have so many more customer touches.
And I'll tell you, because Google Local Services, that's been our best business that we've gotten. That's the best.
It's so saturated in my industry.
Yeah, that's one of the things I noticed. I have my budget set at $2,000 a week, but it only spends about $200. So, and I have more Google reviews than anybody in the state. So like I'm constantly trying to figure out how to optimize that Google
Well, and they always
page.
change it. The LSA is the most, it's the biggest moving target in the world of internet advertising.
It's been amazing for us, though. I mean, that was our number 1 source last year, and the people coming through it have been really good. But with the reviews, they're such a big part of it. And I've taken on a different philosophy for reviews than transactional. So part of what I do is with the people that work here and with myself is I say to you, Jamie, well, I have an actual template that I would text to you and it says, Jamie, look, we're having a contest with each other and we just want to see who can get the most 5-star Google reviews for our company. It doesn't have to be about a transaction. It could be about our relationship, my social media presence, an interaction we've had in some other field.
Yeah.
And that might be cheating, but at the same time it isn't, because it really is an ego booster for the people that work here, because now they've got friends and family that'll actually do something and say something nice about them.
Right.
And it's like, if you make it super easy for people because I think a lot of people get caught up writing reviews, they're worried that they're not going to say the right thing.
For sure.
So then they take this time to stop and think about it, and then something comes up and then they just forget about it. And it's not that they don't want to do it, it's maybe they overthought it. So like giving people that template has been really helpful for us. But
well, in this day and age, people don't want to pick up the phone and order a pizza, right? I mean, they definitely don't want to put their written word out on the internet. So you are asking for people to do. And then we still have older clientele. I definitely, when we bought Sorg, they've got a client base that they've had maintenance agreements with customers since the 70s. I mean, it's crazy. But in Lexington, we never had this issue. But in Frankfurt, 1 in 3 customers doesn't has an email account.
Wow.
And it's like, oh my God, it's 2024 and
Yeah.
you don't have email. I mean, how do you get pictures of your grandkids,
Yeah.
But you call it cheating. I'm swimming in a room full of sharks, right? I've got these venture capital companies that are spending tens of thousands of dollars on marketing, and they've got internal marketing departments, and they're driving 1,000 Google reviews. So when I say I've got 400, I'm proud of that, right?
Yeah.
Well, my 400, if you go and look at 390 of them, they mention in a staff member a name.
Yeah, right.
They're legit, non-cheating, we gave quality service enough for somebody to go out
I
and do
didn't
that.
dig into the ones, because I did notice they had thousands of reviews. Those other companies did. And, I just know, like, that's me riding the line, but at the same time, these are people that work here.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
it's about their character.
Absolutely.
And if it's reviewing the character of someone that works here.
And those companies are using bots, right?
Right.
I mean, they're using AI to get Google reviews.
Yeah.
And you got to finish. What's the line of diminishing return on a homeowner that's looking for a new company? Say you just moved to town and you're picking a new HVAC company. If I got 400 and they've got 4,000, and we've been in business the same amount of time, I mean, is that a weighted? I mean, at what point is how many is enough?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a great question, though. And I do think, I heard that somebody said to me that 4-star reviews are better than 5-star reviews. But I've
always been told that a 5-star rating looks fake and that you want a 4.8, 4.9. Yeah.
Ours is 5-star. But here's the deal. People immediately go to click on lowest. They immediately go to the lowest. And I think it's the business owner's response to the lowest that really drives my attention. Like, if somebody says, oh, you're a jerk and you didn't do what we told you to do, if that's the business's response, they're out. It doesn't matter how many reviews they have.
So I recently had this experience, and this is almost inappropriate to talk about on a podcast, but I had a review, and the guy's name popped up, and it was like, that name rings a bell. So I Google him, and he gave us a 1-star review because we went out to fix something, and we gave him a quote for it, and he thought the quote was unreasonable. It was a $250 repair, something like that. So let me segue into something different, and I'll finish that story. So do you know what the average cost of a woman's haircut and color is in Lexington right now?
No, I don't.
So I got a friend of mine who owns one of the nicer salons in town, and he's all about data too. It's $165. That's the average cost, right?
Okay.
So you're going to a salon, you're paying a licensed professional, someone that you trust, to take care of your hair. I mean, that's very important. My wife, she's 20 years loyal to her, the girl that she uses. My whole family goes to her, right? So people are super loyal, but you're paying $165 probably 4 or 5 times a year for that. I am servicing your heating and cooling. I'm sending a $50,000 truck with $20,000 worth of tools and parts on it, with an employee making $30+ an hour to your home to service you. And as an industry, we've conditioned you that a $59 tune-up is a real thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, it isn't.
Right.
There's no way that math works.
Right.
So if you can spend $165 on a haircut, well, you could go to the barber college for $10, or you can pay a professional.
Right.
So that's kind of my mantra is we're very fairly priced, but we're professional. And the $8.88 tune-up at Home Depot is somebody coming to take advantage of you.
Right.
I'm providing a fair price and a fair value. So that's usually how I address people when we get a complaint, because we get them occasionally.
Right.
So I Google this guy's name who left a 1-star review for us, and the first thing that pops up is the dude is a convicted sex offender. Oh. And I'm like, the child brain in me is like, well, we don't give good service to convicted sex offenders. Right. But I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I actually even called somebody, and I'm like, I'm thinking of doing this. And they're like, no, you can't do that.
The best thing to do is wait 24 hours at least.
I know. But it was just one of those that it's like, and I got 2 daughters, so that's like, to me, those people should be put under the jail, right? I've got a very strong opinion on that. But anyway, you're always thinking of how to appropriately respond to a bad review.
Yeah.
And you got to be careful on how you do it, because like you said, the response is really important.
The response is the most important thing. It's the bad review. People know that you're human.
Yes.
Like, people accept a mistake if you take responsibility for it.
For sure.
Because no matter what, this is what I believe. I'm really big on pointing thumbs. Like, there's not many things, it's really hard to find something that I don't take responsibility for. Like, from people answering my phone calls to anything. I'm like, well, they don't answer my phone call, I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, so when it comes to reviews, I think that's key. Did he have any other reviews? I love that button too.
I didn't think to do that.
It's right by where the review is that you click on. It says that 23 reviews. You click on that. It's really interesting because I could have a horrible experience and I won't write a bad review.
Right.
Unless unless somebody like was disrespectful or someone was just totally out of whack and I want to deter business. Yeah. If it's something where I got bad service at a restaurant, or if it was like, if it's not the business owner, like, I'm not going to write it. If it's not the sales manager, if it's not the person that's in charge, but they're still in charge. The people that work there, like you said, we're in a customer service business and this is what we do, right?
The challenge when you get, so when if I go to look at another company, I'm looking at their Google reviews, I want to spend money with them, I will look at the 1-star reviews. But, I'm a logical person and I read the review, and about 75% of the time, the 1-star review, you can tell that person was the problem, right? And I can say with pure certainty, if I've got a 1-star review, that person was the problem, right? So when I read that, I usually don't even put any value in that review at all. Right. I'm like, I was at a customer service seminar, a marketing seminar in 2018, and the guy speaking was talking about Google reviews, and he said, aim for 97% customer satisfaction. Yeah. And I raised my hand. I said, "How about why not 100%?" He goes, "Because 3% of the world is crazy.
Yeah,
and you're never going. Don't engage with crazy. Just let it go.
And if you can't work with crazy people, I think it's a higher percentage.
Post COVID, it's a higher percentage.
Right. I always find that that piece of it, though, especially it's probably the same for you, is the crazy comes out when expectations aren't met.
Right.
Like, people can be completely nuts. And as long as their expectations are met, the nuts doesn't come out.
Yeah, I can say
that. But the moment when something goes off, or they think that something isn't the way it's supposed to be, that's when the crazy comes out.
Yeah.
Right? So if you can't work with crazy people, who are you going to work with?
One of my worst experiences as an HVAC contractor, worst experience providing service to somebody. Like, we failed. Before I opened Synergy, I was at Climate Control, and I was there for a couple of years. And we converted somebody from a gas system to a geothermal system. It was a great project, and it was a big house. I mean, like 10,000 square foot house. And the homeowners were super nice to deal with. And like right after we changed it out, the air conditioner that we worked on in the attic, it leaked and dropped their ceiling.
Oh, geez.
So we send a crew out. They make an adjustment. We fix it. They fix the drywall. 3 days later, we drop the ceiling again. I go out. Mr. Homeowner is actually an engineer by trade. And me, him, and a service tech get up in the attic, and we go over everything with a fine-tooth comb, find a couple problems, fix it. 3 days later, we drop the ceiling again.
Oh, no.
Ultimately, we dropped that ceiling 5 times in that house.
Wow.
We fixed it every time. It was 99% of it was pre-existing things that just because we were the last one to touch it, it became our problem.
Yeah.
But we were the last one to touch it. We should have caught it. And we fixed their ceiling, fixed their floor. So that was 13 years ago. We are in their house today doing service. They've been loyal customers to Jamie Clark, not the company I was at, but to me, because I was out there 5 times, personally taking responsibility, fixing it.
Makes a big difference.
Well, and Mr. Homeowner, the engineer, he was with us on time 3, and it still failed 2 more times.
Yeah.
So he's putting his face in his hands. He's like, God, we're just cursed, So they were very good, rational people, but they've been lovely
It's amazing
clients.
when things go wrong.
And we put solar panels on their house.
That's awesome. Yeah, when you take responsibility, that's a big deal, man.
Oh, it's
in
huge.
business.
When you're in business, small fires, you run to them or they become big fires.
Right.
You've got to run to it.
Right.
And if you do more fire prevention than firefighting, your life's a whole lot happier.
Yeah. Yeah. I got a lot of that from the restaurant business. I grew up in a restaurant, so I spent a lot of time trying to avoid problems as opposed to fixing problems.
That culture of your staff is huge on that. I grew really fast as a business, and because I've been in the industry a long time by the time I opened Synergy, so I had a bit of a client base, a following, so to speak. And we had a couple builder relationships, and we just exploded. My first year in business, I did $3 million, and that's insane for an HVAC contractor.
Wow. Yeah.
And it almost crushed me. It really did. And you got to a point right before COVID that we were doing so much new construction, and the builders are slow pay and they're difficult, and you got to manage a lot of manpower and things, and it got just overwhelming. And I realized I wasn't running the business I wanted to run.
Right.
And I completely eliminated new construction and just focused on homeowners and air quality and doing what we do. And I was worried because we were doing over $1 million a year in new construction, and I fired that portion of my business.
Yeah.
So, you're a $3+ million company and you fire 30% of your business. Well, what's next year going to look like?
Yeah.
Well, we grew from a $3 million to a $4.5 million business while firing a $1 million in business.
Yeah.
Because we grew in what we did right. What we did, and it allowed us to focus on having better employees and better culture. And I mean, it was life-changing for me.
I worked with a builder for about 6 months.
Yeah.
I believe that I'm valuable, like in a way that most people aren't. Like I'm the person that's going to make it happen.
For sure.
Right? With builders, what I've come across is especially volume builders, is like the more that they do, the less they want to pay.
Right, for sure.
And the more they think it's that you don't have any value in the situation. It's like you're just checking a box. That's how it always came across for me, and that's how my relationships have been.
And I'm definitely
not to say that they're all like that.
I'm not running down that industry by any
No,
means.
no,
I've
no,
got
no,
some
no.
really great friends that are builders and some mentors. And my landlord is a builder that's been a mentor of mine for a decade. That I love him. He's a part of my life. But that's not a good fit for my business model. I mean, we do really high quality, high customer service work,
right?
And that's more of commodity driven, and that's not the world I want to be in.
Right. What percentage of people have solar panels right now?
In Kentucky, it's less than 1%. We are bottom 5th in the nation. There's only a couple of states below us: Mississippi, West Virginia. Poor states and coal states, basically. Legislatively, it's been a challenge. We've had to do a lot to fight for solar in the legislature. The utility companies are very aggressive at trying to limit solar. It's funny. They're not opposed to solar. They're building solar fields, right?
Yeah, right.
They're opposed to you being energy independent.
Right.
And the grid in Kentucky is in bad shape. We've had more power outages in the last 12 months than we've had in the last 3 years combined.
Yeah.
And it's not getting any better. I mean, that's why our backup generator sales have gone through the roof. I mean, you go back 5 or 6 years ago, I'm putting in 1 generator a week.
Yeah.
We're putting in 5 a week right now, and we've got a month-long waiting list to get to people.
I had one at the first house I lived in Lexington, and it never went. We never lost power.
Yeah,
the whole time I lived there, I'm
use.
just waiting for the power to go out. Please go out, and it would never go out.
Once you live in a house with a backup power generator, you'll never have another house without one.
Yeah.
Because you never have to worry about your pipes freezing. You never have to worry about food in the freezer that's going to spoil.
No, right.
My youngest daughter's type 1 diabetic. We keep $1,000 worth of insulin in the fridge at all times.
Yeah. I need to get one. The last time the power went out, I had one of those plugs where I can plug the generator in.
Yeah.
And I don't have one at my new house.
If you're a really handy DIY guy, that's fine. But, if you're out of town, your wife's not going to do that.
Yeah.
So the great thing about a backup power generator, the power goes off for less than a minute. It engages.
Yeah.
And if we do it right, it runs the whole house. You want to be conservative. You don't turn everything on at the same time. But you can live very, very comfortably. And, what we're doing right now, Generac actually has an 18-month same as cash promotion. So 18 months, same as cash. We put the generator in. You have it paid off in 18 months. You don't pay a penny in interest.
But
so
if you go 19 months, you pay all the interest.
You don't ever want to go 19 months.
You talking about growth. I think one of the major factors in growth is people, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So what do you do to find people? You said that, like when you have a technician, if they don't have a job, I mean, I guess if they got relocated or something, that might be an opportunity to get a good one. But
you've always got to be recruiting, and you've always got to be growing. I've got a young man that works for me right now. He's 19 years old. He made a very, very good living last year. I don't want to share his wage, but he made a better living than the Kentucky median, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
And it's because he never misses work. He comes in, he performs every day, and he is great at attention to detail. He is going to have a long and successful career. He came to me as a 17-year-old intern his senior year of high school. He was coming to school in the morning and coming in at noon every day.
That's cool.
His little brother just came to work for me, and he's 17 years old, and he's a savant. And those two kids are made out of gold. And if I can find 10 more just like them, I won't need 20 more employees, right? If you've got 10 quality, you won't need 20.
No, right, for sure.
But growing them has been, we've got a fairly young staff, and over the last year, I've probably gotten 5 people their journeyman's license, because we've helped mentor them to get to that point. Our industry is evolving, and you talk about selling and things. The average age of an HVAC business owner in Kentucky is high 60s. A lot of these guys are aging out. That's another reason for it to sell.
Yeah.
I'm still in my 40s.
Right.
I'm a long way off from that. The average age of a master electrician is high 60s. Because in 2006, if you've been doing electrical work for longer than 5 years, you were grandfathered in and became a master.
Oh.
Since 2006, we've only had about 1,000 people become master because you have to be an electrician for 8 years and you have to take the hardest test of all the trades to get your master's license. I failed it the first time by one question. I mean, I'm a really good test taker, man. That made me so mad.
Right.
But it is a wicked hard, it's a 5-hour-long test, and it's wicked hard. And so many people fail it so many times, they don't do it.
Yeah.
So, if you do the math, right, you have to be an apprentice or a journeyman for 8 years before you can become a master. You can be a doctor faster in Kentucky than you can be a master electrician.
Yeah.
So these guys are all aging out,
Yeah.
So, and then me being a dual master, having my HVAC and my electrical, it's a bit of a unicorn. We don't have hardly anybody that does that.
Right.
So it makes Synergy unique. There's a generation, and you and I are about the same age, right?
Yep.
There's a generation kind of right behind us that goes down to plus or minus 30 years old of people that just weren't raised right. I don't know what it is, but when we try to hire that certain group, it seems like we've had a lot of problem with them.
Yeah.
And it seems that now we're getting into the younger guys. They're the ones that want to work in a trade, because we spent 30 years with a guidance counselor at school saying, go to school,
college.
get a liberal arts degree,
Yeah.
you'll come out and make $1 million,
Right.
right? And we have a lot of people with $100,000 worth of student loan debt, they're making $40,000 a year, right?
Right.
So, I've got 17, 18-year-old kids making better money than that because they're willing to work in the trades. And hey, when it was 5 degrees last week and we were outside putting generators in, it kind of sucked, right? I get it. But they did it with a smile on their face, and they're hardworking.
Right.
So these young guys, we're starting to see the trades become more attractive to them.
Yeah.
Especially people that are wired that way, that don't like to sit behind a desk and be in class. And that we've had really good luck. I mean, I got about 5 or 6 guys that are under 25, definitely under 30, that are almost savants at what they do because they love it. And we treat them really, really well.
I work with a lot of young people. I wasn't looking to bring on experienced agents because I just didn't want to deal with them. Right?
Well, you don't want to fix bad habits.
Yeah, I mean,
if we start you young and we train you our way, we don't have to retrain you.
Then I got to the point where I was like, I invest so much time and so much money and so much energy into these young people, and if they don't ever sell any real estate, I have no return on it, right? So there's a 6-month ramp-up period. You could start working today, and you're not getting paid for 6 months. Yeah. So for a minute, I stopped. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to bring any more new people on. Now I've learned to separate the superstars from the average and the people that have a need. That's the biggest thing that I learned, because I used to think I could teach anyone to do it. But if you don't have a need, you don't. What are you going to do? There's so many people. It's really interesting to me because there's never been a time in my life I remember having to do my own laundry. You know, like I had a need to do my own laundry. Like,
Right.
I didn't need to do just about everything there was in life.
You know, I had a young man when I bought Sorg. There was a young man that was employed there that was fairly new and a helper. And you know, when we buy a company, because we bought a couple now, we buy a company. We interview each staff and we do the SWOT analysis. What are your strengths and weaknesses and stuff? And we ask them that. And I had a young man. You know, I mean, 24 years old, still living at home, and he called himself a phrase that I won't use because it's inappropriate. But then he said, I'm just really soft, and my mom takes care of everything. She still does my laundry. She still
Said it
cooks
out
my
loud.
food. And he goes, you know, I'll never move if she doesn't make me. And that's my biggest weakness. And we found him to be a very soft employee. And with what we do, that's not a good fit. So we ultimately ended up letting him go. But it was almost like a point of pride. You know, I don't have to do anything. Mommy does it for me.
I mean, the reason why I went from Bobby to Bob is because I didn't want to be a little boy.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to be in my parents' house. I didn't want to be, you know, I think back to that moment when I changed my name. I didn't have to change it really, but when I wanted a little more authority in life, I cannot, for any reason, imagine saying something like that or being proud of it or being self-aware of it.
Well, we're business owners, right? I mean, so we're take charge people, we're people of action. But it's funny, you went from Bobby to Bob, right?
Yeah.
So I'm Jamie, you know, which is a bit of an androgynous name.
Right.
So when I moved to Lexington right out of college in 1998, I grew up outside of Louisville. And I started in Louisville, moved here for a company and stayed because I love Lexington. I had been Jamie my whole life. My older siblings, I'm the youngest kid in the family by 10 years. And they nicknamed me Jamie when I was little. And for the longest time, I'd get teased, you know, and there was a girl on the street named Jamie, and her name was Jamie Marie, and people would call me Jamie. And I hated it, you know. So I moved to Lexington, and I'm like, you know, 23 years old. I'm James. I'm going to be James. And anybody that knows me for the first time still calls me James. There's about 10 of them, right? For whatever reason, it immediately watered into Jamie, and it stuck. And so now here I am in, you know, late 40s and business owner. I'm like, you know, there's a value in having a name. You know, James is a much more common name. But there's a lot of people in my industry that they don't even need to use my last name, right? It's like Jamie in HVAC. You know that guy, right?
Right.
You know, well, funny enough, in Lexington, there's 3 guys in HVAC nicknamed Peanut.
It's like, oh, I know.
Is it Peanut at this company or Peanut at that company? Well, there's no other Jamies, you know.
Well, no, I know. But it's Cecil. I know Cecil.
Peanut. And but you know, it took me literally 25 years to actually be proud of my name because it's not as common, you know, because you know James Clark is an extremely common name. Last time I googled, there's like 35 of them in Lexington. But there's only one Jamie, you know, so it stands out.
I also had to do like Joe Brester. I don't know if you know Joe Brester.
Yes.
A real estate agent. So I used to have an office right next door to him, and he's been through all this sales training in his life, and he's just like, I call him the professor. I haven't talked. I need to call. I'm going to call him tomorrow. But so he would overhear me on conversations and critique me. But one of the things he told me that the internet works this way too. But some of my things said Robert, and some of them said Bob.
Oh yeah.
And he was like, and it's really important in SEO to not have a bunch of names for your company, and everything's got to match all the way down the line. But he's like, you got to stop confusing people. Like you got to just stick with one name, pick what it is, and stick with it. And that's what's happened so far. But my last name, there's only one. Well, now there's 2 in Zillow since my wife got her license. But I was the only one in Zillow out of millions of real estate agents that had that last name.
That helps you stand out for sure.
Yeah. So that's been good. So you cultivate the young people.
You cultivate the culture, and then if you build it, they will come, right? You know, the guy that came on board the other day, he was a referral from another guy that had come on recently. You know, I've got a young man that's got 2 years with me now that is an all-star employee. I was in Moorhead looking to buy a horse from a horse trader. Ended up buying the horse. I'm talking to this young kid who's helping show the horse and do all this other stuff. And he's a student at Moorhead University. And very polite, well-mannered young guy, obviously, you know, just a good kid. And I handed him a business card, and I said, hey, if you ever think of moving to Lexington, give me a call. I'm always looking for good young talent. He goes, are you serious? And I mean, just like dead stop. And I said, yeah, absolutely. And he goes, I'm moving to Lexington in 2 weeks, and I literally just got out of trade school with a 2-year HVAC degree.
That's
and
awesome.
he came in. I actually helped rent him a house. I paid his first month's rent to get him set up.
Yeah.
And he's been here 2 years. That kid would take a bullet for me right
Yeah.
now. And he is a fabulous employee.
Keeping your eyes open for stuff like that.
I hired a guy at Firehouse Subs not long ago.
Yeah.
He comes in one of my competitors' trucks and good looking, clean cut, polite. I said, hey, come here. I said, hey, I own Synergy. You familiar? He goes, yeah, you guys are doing good stuff. And I said, I know you're at the company that's been bought out by the private equity, and I see a lot of stuff going. I said, if you get tired of working at corporate America, give me a call. Here's my card. He called me the next day, and 2 weeks later, he was there. You know, so just always looking for good talent. It's so important.
Always got to be looking.
Because it's so easy to find the bad talent.
Yeah, but I think the bad talent, I can't remember the last time I fired someone, and I can't think of one person that's left here that I would hire back. Not one.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
And that's happened through, that's happened through culture.
Yeah.
The culture takes care of itself. And it's interesting, some people might hang out a little too long, a little past their welcome.
Yeah.
And you're worried about getting rid of them or worried about taking them out, but the moment they're gone, it's like everybody takes a big breath of air and they're like, hey,
I had that recently. Yes.
You're so worried about letting them go, but when you realize if they don't fit the culture, then they don't fit.
I had an extremely valuable employee that was in a leadership role that I really liked as a person, and I didn't realize how much chaos he was creating in his downline, the people under him.
Yeah.
And we rearranged his roles, and he didn't like it, and he basically quit right away. The next morning, we were having a team meeting, kind of a small office team meeting. And so I said, I'm going to miss him in a lot of ways because I really liked him. But, man, a lot of times he would wear me out. And in unison, two of my most valuable office staff said, he wore everybody out. And I had no idea.
Isn't that interesting?
And it's like this guy was Mr. Personality. He was extremely popular. Everybody liked him.
Yeah.
But his isms, created chaos. And a month after he was gone, it was like the office was too quiet. I'm like, why is everything so quiet? And it's like, because X is in here stirring up the pot,
It's interesting how that works in business.
And they say one bad apple can spoil the bunch.
Yeah.
In business, that's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, you get one bad employee, and it can ripple effect through the whole company.
I never realized how principled I was until I created a set of principles for the company. I didn't realize how many of them that I lived by and how that really shaped my life. But until everyone understands what they are and is clear that, you're not here because of your performance. You're here because, the principles are more important than the performance, I think. At the end of the day,
You talk about how you're the first one to take blame, right?
Yeah, right.
And I get so frustrated because I want my staff to give our customers a flawless client experience.
Right.
But we do stupid stuff,
Yeah.
right? We have a drywaller that's on speed dial because I've got, on a given day, I've got people in 10 different attics. We're going to step through a ceiling occasionally.
Right.
I spend $500 to $1,000 a month in drywall repair, right?
Right.
I mean, that's part of where we work. It's one of the challenges.
Right.
But I get so focused on that perfect customer experience. This year in building our house, I dealt with a lot of subcontractors, a lot of vendors that are in a similar customer service role. Garage door company, appliance company, mason, this, that, the other. Not one, and I mean not one, of the trades that we dealt with that worked in my house, some of which that I knew personally, some of which might watch this podcast, not one of them gives 50% of the customer service that I give my clients.
Right.
And my wife and I on a regular basis were like, dear God, how do these companies survive? And some of them, well, we're going to be here between, noon and 4, and you call at 3:30 looking for them. Oh, we're not coming today. We had 2 people call in sick today.
Right.
Well, it's Friday afternoon and my toilet's not working. And, well, we can come tomorrow, but it's $100 extra. Well, wait a second. You stood me up, and then they're going to be there Monday. First call, so we know that we'll get to you. 10:30 we call. Oh, they're going to be there in about an hour.
Right.
And that was an average experience.
And I think I see that a lot in real estate, right? And I think there's people out there, and I shouldn't compare it to real estate. I think about it with the trades that are artists. I mean, some of these guys are so good. They're so good at what they do. They're so efficient, but they don't know how to run a business. They don't know how to run a business, and it's like, but they don't want anyone else to run their business. Mm-hmm. They want to run the business themselves. If they operated their business like you, they'd have a booming, gigantic business, but they don't want one.
No.
They don't
Well,
want one.
and a lot of people want it, but they don't know how to get there.
Right.
You know, I mean, the statistic in my industry, I told you, there's 200 HVAC contractors licensed in Fayette County. Well, I mean, 180 of them probably are under $2 million a year in revenue.
Wow.
You know, I did $3 million my first year in business 10 years ago.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So only 1% of the industry ever grows beyond 5 million because you have to have process and procedure and KPIs and scoreboards in place because there's 1,000 different places to lose money when you're doing this. You know,
Right.
I mean, you know, the $8.88 tune-up, that's a loser if you don't manage that and drive a person to go in there and upsell and do all the things that those companies do. But one of the challenges I had with my business model is there is no template for Synergy Home, right?
Right.
I mean, we are a unique animal. I mean, there's companies in other states that do similar stuff to me that I've found over the years, but
Yeah.
I'm the only guy in Kentucky that has a holistic business model that like we do.
Yeah.
So, you know, I can't go to a coach and say, hey, help me to get from, 10 million to 12 million. You know, it's like, well, there are HVAC coaches, there are electrical coaches, there's even spray foam coaches, but there's nobody that's talking to a home service holistic company on, hey, this is how you layer these. And our success
That's really
has
cool.
largely been because we are holistic. And, we go into a house and they've got a problem with a bad HVAC, but we recognize there's no insulation. And it's like, well, hey, if we upgrade your insulation, we can put in 20% smaller HVAC, improve your air quality, make your house warmer, save you utility bills. Let's do it.
So who does the sales?
I've got 3 people that outside sell, and then I still run sales appointments, but mainly referrals and repeat customers.
Yeah.
I'm at a point to where I need to be in the office much more.
Because I imagine a skilled salesperson would thrive in that environment.
It's a challenge. I interviewed 5 salespeople from other HVAC companies last summer, and I offered a job to one. Ironically, I trained this guy 10 or 12 years ago, so I know what he's out there and what he's capable of. But I had a couple of guys from one of the big companies. I was flabbergasted at how bad they were at their job.
Yeah.
Just in interviewing them, you could tell, you and this is an arrogant statement, but you're not worthy to work for my company.
No, right.
I mean, I don't mean to be, that blunt about it, but you've been with X company for 5 years and you don't know any more about heating and cooling than you do.
Right.
We're nerds over here, man. We're
Yeah.
experts at what we do.
Yeah. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
today.
it's been awesome. I've always liked how you do things because, I remember I did a lunch and learn when you were at Keller Williams 8 or 9 years ago. And I went into your office. And, of course, at Keller Williams, a more modern agency in general, but your office, like walking into Google, you had these clear whiteboards and everybody was tactical, and I mean, it was just a different feel. And this office space here is very much like that.
Man, if
How
you're
many
in here-
agents? How many agents?
12,
Yeah.
12 active agents. But in the morning, if you come in here any day of the week at 8:15 a.m., which you're welcome to come in, we have a meeting every morning from 8:30 to 9. Before they were really focused on scripting, but now we've gotten away from that. Now they're more tactical, but it's a sales meeting. It's essentially a sales meeting for 30 minutes every day.
Yeah.
And everybody shows up.
So
And
we do a production meeting every
Yeah,
morning from
yeah.
8:30 to 9.
Yeah.
We call it our WIP meeting, work in progress.
Yeah.
And what didn't go right yesterday, what do we need to address today, what are we
Yeah.
going to do tomorrow?
Yeah. So
That 30 minutes is so valuable.
oh man,
Yeah.
the energy, and it's the only time of day that I have everybody's attention too.
Absolutely.
We do that, and then the morning is focused on shaking the trees, making phone calls, and connecting with people. And this is just the perfect space for it.
Yeah,
And then I can
no.
also I've been doing masterminds. That's what that room's designed for out there.
That's cool.
And it's just been a great place.
Well, you and I we touched on it a couple of years ago. It would be so good to get a group of Lexington business owners together, of like-minded people that want to grow, that want to network. I mean, so many of the networking groups, they're tough. I mean, I got kicked out of Rotary because I couldn't go to enough Rotary meetings.
Right.
Well, I joined Rotary when I was 31. I got kicked out when I was 39. When I was 31, I went through the list on Rotary, and I was the 7th youngest guy of 365 people.
Wow.
8 years later, at 39, I got kicked out, and I was like the 5th youngest guy of 365 people. And Rotary's a wonderful organization, but it wasn't a good place for me at that time in my life,
Right.
And it's such a challenge. And B&I groups and things, I feel like a lot of those are designed for very specific industries or people getting their start. When you're 20, 30 years into your career, you've got a referral network.
And I've never been to a B&I meeting, but I do know from several people that have been in them, people refer business to each other. That's what the whole idea is, right? Yeah. I kind of got a hang up with that. I mean, I'm in a business where most people get their business from referrals, but why are people referring to you?
Right.
Why are they referring to you? Why are you referring to this real estate? Because they go to church with you?
Right.
Because you're friends with their daughter?
Yeah.
Because they're
the best?
But they don't do it because they're the best.
Yeah.
They don't do it because of their track record or their experience. It's heavy. I mean, that's our biggest competition is referrals, family, friends.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So when it comes to like a B&I group, I'm like, I don't need those artificial referrals. I mean, I'm going to go get business. I'm going to go prove myself. I'm going to go shake the trees. And I'm the one that's going to put my foot in between that relationship and say, hold on a second, you might want to hear a second opinion here. You know what I mean? So the premise of it all together kind of gets me worked up. But as far as the mastermind thing, when you were talking about all these different elements of your business, my mind, like when I look at other people's businesses, I'm so good at like analyzing other people's business. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. My business of like, the way I've made it all these years is just by putting my head down and just going, right? Like I have a hard time keeping my focus. So I have to trick myself into focusing on the things that are going to move the needle for the company, right?
Yeah.
I have to stay in that place. So sometimes that puts on blinders for the other things, because if I'm watching every single piece all the time, I'm going to be shooting this way and shooting that way, and I'm not going to be taking things where they need to go, right? It's really interesting.
My industry is a little different than yours, right? Because a lot of times when somebody goes to hire as a realtor, they go and they call one person, maybe two people, and they hire one of those two people.
Right.
Not uncommon for us to walk into a competitive bid situation with 5 other HVAC contractors.
It's like 80% use the first agent that they talk to.
That does not surprise me.
80%.
So in our industry, 80% use the people that are doing their annual maintenance. That's why it's so important to build a client base of annual maintenance.
Yeah.
We lose money on annual maintenance. It's not a moneymaker.
Right.
It's break even at best.
Right.
But the statistic is the more people you have maintenance, when their equipment dies, they're going to come straight to you because they already trust you. Right. Well, in a competitive bid situation, we'll walk into usually 3, but sometimes 5, sometimes 6, 7. If we walk into that room and your focus is on quality and somebody that's going to be an expert and do the good job, I'm going to sell that job every single time because they're going to respect, because my people are the experts in the room. Yeah. We're not sending somebody who was selling used cars last week to come in and look at the most important system in your house, right? Our guys are thorough. We're different, So we love getting in those situations. If price is your only motivation, we're going to sell it 20% of the time.
Right.
We're definitely not the price leader in the market. We're a long way from that. We're fair. We're middle.
Yep.
But if you're a slumlord that wants the cheapest guy that you can probably take advantage of, hey, I know where their office is. I can point you in their direction.
Yeah, right.
That's just not how we do business.
I just think it's interesting how you have the different elements. Like the solar thing.
It all works together, though.
The solar thing and having the reputation that you have, I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, I can't imagine if somebody wanted solar, who else would they use?
Well, I mean, that's...
are they going for the best price? Are they going...
Very often when we lose a solar job, it's because they decided to do nothing. Most of the time, if they're going to do solar, we got like an 80% close rate.
Yeah.
So it's a viable part of our business.